Hello friend, I know this is very basic and that's the reason I'm covering this topic because basics and fundamental knowledge is the most important. So today I will explain the services, resources and groups concepts in AWS so that by the end of this video you will master these concepts and then you can explain these concepts too in your interviews or anywhere. So let's start our journey from the very first, and that is the differences between services and resources. What is a resource in AWS? What is the difference between a resource and a service? Yeah, I know it sounds very easy, but I don't want to take any chance with any confusion. So let's quickly understand it. Let's go to my AWS Management Console. Here it is. Here, for example, to host your application, you need EC2 instance. So here is EC2 instance. Let's press it and here it is. Now you will find the launch instance option for EC2. Now listen carefully. When I press launch instance, that means an instance of the EC2 service will be created in my AWS account. Okay. That specific instance we call a resource. So basically, after creating the resource, I can use it for any purpose in the cloud. For example, I can host my application inside that EC2 instance, and in the same way, I can create multiple resources in my AWS account for different services also, like RDS instance for database, S3 instance for storage, Lambda instance for serverless function. So that's how. Now let's go back to the slide. For example, this is your AWS cloud and there are many services available here like this, Elastic Beanstalk. Okay. Now your company AWS developer can use any of these services by creating instances of them like this. Okay, and those created instance in your company account are called resources. Okay, and you can name them as per your convenience. So if you are a developer, just understand it like AWS service is like a class and AWS resource is like an object or instance of that class. Great. Now you are 100% sure what is a service, what is a resource, what is the difference. Here is the easy to remember definition. AWS service is a tool or feature offered by the AWS to perform tasks like computing, storage, network security. AWS resource is an instance of that service that you create, configure and use in the cloud. For example, AWS service is like a class, AWS resource is like an object or instance of that class. Okay. Now, this simple diagram and theory in this book will help you in the quick revision for your interviews. Now, for a single application hosting, you have to create many resources. Now, how to manage those resources, that I will cover in the upcoming questions. Before moving forward, a quick note here. I created a complete AWS interview preparation bootcamp for you with 3 powerful tools. Number 3, 200 plus AWS interview questions from all the topics step by step, even for AWS beginners like this. Second, a PDF book for quick last minute revision. And first, 10 AWS mock interviews to practice like real interviews. Many students have already cracked interviews with my courses. All links are in the description. If interested, great. If not, no worries. Let's move to the next question. What are resource groups in AWS? What are the AWS tags? Get ready because by the end you will be able to explain this to anyone. Let's quickly understand with the help of an example. Imagine your company has a web application hosted in AWS cloud. to run this web application, you have created many AWS resources like EC2 as the server to run the application, RDS as the database you have added, Lambda function, and there are many more services or resources you can add, but because the space is limited, that's why I have only added 3. Okay. And yes, don't worry if you don't know what these services do, that I will cover later in detail. Just focus that you have created many resources in your AWS account. Now you can put all these resources together under one resource group like this. And let's say the name of this resource group is Product Development Resource Group 1. Whatever name you like, you can keep. Now the question is, why we have created this resource group? Because now all these resources will be grouped, okay, together under this development resource group, and only the development team will have the access to it. Later, when the development of the application is done, you can create the similar set of resources for the testing team. Okay, so these are different resources of the same service. So you understanding it, the name is Product Testing Resource Group number 2. This group can be accessible to both development or testing or only testing. It depends on you. Similarly, you can create a resource group for UAT, for staging, for production environments. Different environments, different resource groups. Okay. See, if you will not create groups, then there will be resource confusions. Like the first EC2 is for application for development, it's for testing. There will be confusion, right? So that's why we have grouped it in different resource groups, and each team works on their own isolated resource group environment. Getting my point? Now, like me, if you are from a development background, then here is a nice way to relate it. Think AWS service as a class, AWS resource as a object of that class, and resource group as the collection of objects like lists. Okay. In short, we use resource group to organize, manage, and control resources in a cleaner way. That is the best answer of this question. And here is the simple definition. A resource group is a logical connection of related AWS services resources which can be managed together. Why to use them? It allows you to manage, organize, and control resources efficiently. Okay. Now, how to create resource group? That is with the help of the AWS tags in AWS. What are AWS tags? AWS tags are key value pairs like this: project, website, environment, dev, that you assign to AWS resources to organize, manage, and group them. Okay. For example, one EC2 instance you can tag as environment dev. Then next EC2 instance you can tag as environment prod. Okay, that's how you can keep them in different groups. Great. That is the answer to this question. Now, why I'm writing the definition? Because I have the problem of forgetting the concept before the interviews, and by writing it this way, it is very easy to revise them very fast. Because maybe you have the knowledge, but if you forget concepts during your interviews, then what is the point of your knowledge, right? Great job, my friend. Now, if you understand this video, then there is a next level of resource, that is accounts and organization, which are actually asked in AWS interviews. Those I have explained in my complete AWS interview bootcamp. Many of my students have already used my courses to crack their interviews. Now, if you don't want to miss a single question for your next interview, then check out the bootcamp and book link in the description below.